guys, Jake Carlson here, host of the Modern Leadership Podcast. Are you ready to focus on amplifying your leadership superpowers? Let's go! Hello, Elite Achievers. It is so good to be with you back as another episode of the Modern Leadership Podcast. And I got to tell you, we got a great one for you today. And I want to start off by telling you a quick story. And you've heard this story before. I know I've told it on the podcast, but there was this monk and he was passing away. He was laying on his deathbed. And as he looked up and kind of realized, took his whole life in and thought about what he had accomplished and what he wanted to, he felt some sadness. He felt like he hadn't done much because he started out in life hoping that he could change the world. And he realized that he hadn't reached that goal. But in a moment of clarity, he came to a profound understanding, and that is, if he would have worked on focusing on himself, changing himself, well, that would have affected his family. And by affecting his family, they could have affected the city and the state and the community that they lived in. And ultimately, that influence could have gone on and affected so many more people, literally changing the world. And I tell you that story because today I'm bringing on a guest that you're absolutely going to love. His name, Tommy Breedlove. He is the founder of an organization called Choose Goodness, which is a company dedicated to helping executives and entrepreneurs focus beyond the financial bottom line. He started his career with Deloitte, spent 20 years serving as a CPA, leadership coach, corporate financial consultant. He's still on the board of advisors, chair and director for multiple nonprofits. But he realized that his true inspiration, his true calling was to inspire and empower leaders. So Tommy bridges the gap between humanity and profitability. He transforms organizations to attract and retain the best and brightest people. He creates a loyal customer base to promote goodwill within communities. Choose Goodness provides both the rational and the emotional perspectives to the strategic and financial decision-making process. I think you're really going to love my interview with Tommy Breedlove. Well, Tommy, it is great to have you on the podcast, on the Modern Leadership Podcast, and to talk about all things goodness. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, Jake. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
One of the things that excites me about having you on the show today is I love this idea of goodness. And I got to take you back to the start of your Choosing Goodness days.
So I was 36 years old. I had achieved financial success. I had the big office in the top of the building, watch cars, and a little side note is it's kind of a rags to riches story. Grew up in a lower middle class neighborhood in the south side of Atlanta. None of my family ever went to school. And I turned around, I woke up one day, it was January 2nd. I was either 36 or 37 years old, principal with the firm. And I turned around and looked behind me, and it was just, in my opinion, and this is being a little hard on myself, so this is my opinion at that time, I was leaving a trail of destruction. And so I went on this personal, I don't even know the right word to use it, a journey to rediscover who I really was, what I stood for, and instead of coming from a fear or an anger or a resentment or nothing's ever good enough standpoint, from more of an empathy, compassion, love standpoint. So I went on this journey at 36. And during that journey, I stayed with the big financial firm. I was a partner there. But Choose Goodness was born initially as just a benchmark for me as a human being. And I would ask myself in every decision I made, have I chose goodness for myself? And that's still the one today that I work on the most, or someone else, my community, or the planet. And so it's really choices with intention. And goodness means something to every different person on earth. And for me, goodness just means being better than I was yesterday, but also treating people or organizations or other human beings how I want to be treated. But goodness can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people based on where they are and what they believe in and what they love and what they would fight for. But for me, goodness is literally about choices, intentional choices. And I think a lot of us, or at least for me, a lot of the choices that I made were very unconscious and from a scarcity mindset as opposed to abundance mindset. So initially, long-winded answer, it was born out of an aspirational benchmark. I felt before age 36 or 37 that probably 8 out of 10 choices that I made were out of arrogance, which is another word for insecurity, or fear, or whatever mask I was wearing that day. Powerful guy, funny guy, leadership guy. cool guy, and instead of just being Tommy, and choosing to live that in my value systems and with some grace and empathy. So that's what choose goodness means to me.
Well, and I'm really glad that you took us back and started us before you started the Choose Goodness journey. And as you started talking about that, the thought that came to my mind is, how do you get on that path? And the reason I ask this is I think there are a lot of people, and they might be 36, they might be 26, they might be 46, but they got on this path and it wasn't their intention to not choose goodness or to get on this path of, as you say, and I agree with you, Tommy, you're being a little harder on yourself than the reality probably justifies.
That was back then. I'm a totally different spot now, I promise.
But what puts us on that path? Because I think you're not alone. I think I've been on that path. And it's not that we are trying to leave destruction, but we look back and we say, where's the significance? Where's the contribution that we're adding? How do we get on that path?
Yeah, so that's a beautiful question, and you're right. I think it comes to different people at different times in our life. Honestly, a lot of the organizations and or leaders or individuals that I represent are sometimes 55, 65, 70 years old, and it's never too late. The key to really discovering that, it's a feeling, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. I get probably 4 or 5 emails and 3 calls a week. And sometimes it's from companies and sometimes it's from people. And I'll come back around to answering that. And they say, I don't like the direction of our company. Leadership is down. People are leaving. And or on an individual or leadership level, I'm struggling with XYZ. And XYZ can mean big decisions in their business all the way to really personal things that they're dealing with at the human level or leadership level. But a lot of these folks will literally give me all their problems on the phone or in the email. And it could be a financial corporate problem, or it could be an individual leadership problem. And at the very end, it says this: don't give me any of that guru stuff. So they're asking for help, but the answer to your question is, are you ready for help? Do you desire help? And the biggest thing, are you willing to take the action, look in the mirror, and really look at yourself and say, what do I truly love about myself? What do I not like about myself? What are my strengths and weaknesses? And how do I be a better individual? So it's really a feeling and desire. And I had that happen to me multiple times. I really believe I'm on the 3rd evolution of my life. 18 years old, got in a significant amount of trouble, went, locked up, hanging with the wrong crowd, thought my life was over. Rebounded by that, decided to get rid of the negative forces in my life, went to work in a factory, went to school at night, ended up at the University of Georgia, graduating in Deloitte. So I went from jail to Deloitte in 3 years, and that was from personal choices. And again, at that time, it was unconscious choices. But I knew that these folks and weren't serving me in the best way. So I literally just worked during the day and went to school at night, and I was driven by, hey, I'm not going to waste my life. I'm going to try to be better. And so that was the first desire. And I also set the action in. And again, at 36, I had just had enough. And it was time to really, I've got everything that society and life has told me that I need to have. And yet I'm absolutely struggling from an emotional, mental, physical. My marriage is in shambles. I'm not surrounded by the people I want to be around. And so I think it has to come from a desire to change and then willingness and action to change. And so I'm a firm believer the message and the tools are there for those who want it. So that's a really another long-winded answer.
Well, we like long-winded answers because they really get to the heart of what we're trying to get. And as you spoke through that, there were a number of things that you said that jump out. You talked about a personal desire. You talked about a drive, and that drive drove you to action. But it all started with that personal desire. And I'm wondering, not everybody has this personal desire to change. And I agree with you. You have to have that. It has to start on the inside. But when you get called by a company and they bring you in, they say, look, we're losing people. We need to stay. We have good people, but we need them to stay. How do you instill a desire, or how do you cultivate or identify or reintroduce an internal desire to somebody who maybe doesn't have it? Because I think a lot of the listeners to this podcast, Tommy, they have an internal desire and drive to change and be better. I mean, podcast listeners in general want to, they study the newest things and they read the newest books and they want to know more. But the general population may not quite be there yet. So how do we find that in them?
This is my favorite thing to talk about. So I love this. So typically when a company calls me, I'll start at the corporate level. They're calling me because I've had 20 years of large corporate financial consulting and strategic experience. So the call goes like this. I either want to sell my company for $27 million. It's a really positive choice they have to make, or they're struggling with something. Sales are down, profitability, cash flow, operations, culture, leadership, people are leaving. And 100% of the time, whatever choice they're facing or struggle or they're dealing with, it's never about what they think it is. And so the way to get people to desire to change, they bring me in to quote, fix X, and it's never about X, it's about A, B, C, D, and Y, and Z. And usually that has to do with the leadership and culture. And most of these people are very successful financially. They're very good leaders. And to get to the heart of your question, how do you get people to desire to change? I think most business leaders, it's not that they don't desire to change, is that they've gotten overwhelmed with running their business, the decisions they have to make. They're dealing with people's lives. And so the first thing that you have to develop is a trust. And because of a lot of the things that I've seen over my quote corporate years and my classic training and to the Deloitte days and whatnot, I have credibility with these humans. But really where we build trust, empathy, compassion is chances are 9 out of 10 times I've been in their shoes and either made the same type of decisions that didn't benefit me or the organization. And we're not doing it because we're malicious. We're doing it because we're either stressed or stuck or can't get out of our own way. So the first thing I do is most of these business leaders or individuals or successful people were really, really, really good at something at one time in their life. And they're probably still really good at it, but they're either working in execution or sales or finance. So their thing could have been product. It could have been innovation. It could have been they're a great sales or they're a great people person. But usually they lose that because the organizational grows and they tend to have a need to control the organization, to make all decisions. And so the first thing we do is help them rediscover what they're really good at and rebuild the skills to do those things again. And for them to really stay in their lane and focus on building themselves and the organization, they don't have to do it all. The second thing we do is help them rediscover the meaning in their life. I mean, what do they really want to stand for? What do they love? What do they want to fight for? What do they want to be known for? And we help build that talent and brilliance and skills around that passion and meaning in their life. And the results of those two things on the effect of themselves, their families, their organizations, it's just the powerful transition you see in getting people to look in the mirror and desire change and really focus on what they love and what they're good at. And there's a lot of ego and trust stuff that we deal with as well, getting them out of their own way, staying their lane. They can still be CEO and corporate chairman, but then surrounding themselves with other talented, like-minded, value-driven, same value, meaningful people. And Jake, the truth is they always bring me in to help them, quote, make more money because this is a business and I love business and I love capitalism. It's what I do. But I spend more time on the meaning and the talent and building the systems and strategies in place. And 99 out of 100 times, the financial results are just extraordinarily better than when we got there. And so that's how I do it.
Well, it absolutely helps answer the question because as I was thinking about this progress that a CEO or a leader, a vice president, someone high up in a company goes through, it takes a certain personality, a certain level of ego, a certain standing up for what you believe to get to that spot. And I love that you made that point saying, look, 99 out of 100 or 100 out of 100, you're being brought in to solve the bottom line or to help with the bottom line. Because in their minds, in a leader's mind, that's the key. But I love that you talk them through this process of getting to the real meat of the issue, and that is making a discovery, a meaning of their life. And I got to ask you, as you go through that transition, obviously your skill needs to come out. Obviously your talent as a consultant comes out in the, hey, I hired you to do X, you're bringing me Y, and I can see that Y is going to help me with my bottom line. Where did you learn that? Is that just something that you went through? Is it something you were born with? Or how do we be able to transition from what somebody thinks they want to what they really want to ultimately realizing that's what they needed?
I lived it. And so that's part of the building trust is when you first come in as a financial consultant, it takes an art and a skill to build that trust with these humans. And these are people who need to make decisions, make tough decisions. And hey, this guy's 44 years old and I'm 65 years old. What can he teach me? And that's where we build a relationship, and I share with them my struggles and triumphs. And so I lived it. And so I had achieved this incredible amount of financial success. I was the international practice leader of a very large financial consulting firm, helping millions and millions and millions of dollars of transactions, both on the M&A front and all that. And I was working, no kidding, 90 hours a week. And it was never going to be enough for me. And I was making what I thought were really good decisions at the time from a leadership standpoint, from an operations standpoint. I had a huge team traveling the world, and quite frankly, I couldn't get out of my own way. And so I went on this rediscovery journey, and plus, because I was unhappy, and this is a little personal, I was a complete disaster in my personal, emotional, mental life, and was struggling with a whole lot of different things to make myself, work being the biggest one, to make myself feel better. I was literally the guy who wanted to turn the lights off last, because that was some sort of, and it didn't matter what I achieved, whether it was international practice leader, shareholder. I was eventually elected to the board of directors, and that's where I'm going with this story. But at the time, it was never going to be enough. And so I was never present to enjoy the successes I have. I wasn't concentrating on my people and how to build the best international practice. I was concentrating on my ego, my success, and beating myself up for my failures. We all struggle with insecurities of not being good enough, and we cannot show that in business. And I was really struggling. So what I did is I changed my life. I went on this journey, and in my business life, I'm not kidding, I literally went from working 80, 90, 100 hours a week down to 30. I concentrated when I was there on the thing that I was really good at, and that was getting the best out of people and making really complicated stuff easy. That's all I did. And then I surrounded myself with like-minded. I treated people like I wanted to be treated. I constantly was training how to be a better leader, how to be a better man, how to be a better human. And so I was just absorbing all this information from an inspirational, a mental, emotional, but also a business, working on my skill set. And the most amazing thing happened. I went from being probably the most despised person at the firm to one of the most beloved, to our international practice won the Global Impact Award by the Metro Atlanta Chamber. Our client base was increasing. People were making more money. People were happy. Everybody in the firm wanted to work in international practice. So I lived both sets of lives. And so it's from triumphs and struggles and a lot of personal work and journey. And even when I made it to the board of directors, that's because I was doing all the right things. So here I am, 39 years old, and most of the board of directors are in their 60s. And there's me, this kid, and I realized within 10 minutes of my first board meeting that I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. It's not that their value systems are wrong. They were just very different than mine. And my passion and love in life, because I had all these clients and women and men and women from all different ages, from 30 to 65, really like, I want what you have, but I don't want people to know that I want what you have. And so I had this calling in life to build this choose goodness movement to help people make intentional, powerful choices based on their goodness and help them achieve meaning, but also ensure financial success. So I lived it. I've struggled with it. I've been there. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to ask people to lay on my lap. We're not going to build teepees in the forest. I've just struggled with certain things. I've overcome certain things, and the results and how I live my life now and the financial success that I've achieved just by helping and serving other human beings to hopefully avoid the mistakes I've made. It's just absolutely amazing. I love it. So this is what lights me up. So
you can absolutely feel it in your voice and in your passion. And the one thing about it that really resonates with the listeners and those you work with, and that is you're doing this out of a sense of helping others. And I want to break down what you just said into a couple of quick sentences. You said you went from being the most despised employee and the person working there, partner, to one of the most beloved. And you followed that with a statement that said, you learned how to make the complicated simple. And I want to bring that out to the audience because, Tommy, I think that is a key to success in life. What you did was you found a way to make complicated things simple. You cut your hours down from 80, 90 down to 30. But what you did was you helped other people get to the next level, to their next dream and ambition. And by doing that, by helping and serving, by spreading the message of goodness, well, you were able to go from being despised to beloved, which gives you a platform for people to listen to you. Nobody wants to listen to the despised person, no matter what they have to say. For 36 years, you felt like you didn't have the choice. You didn't have permission to choose the choices, that they were made for you. And one of the things you say is some of those choices that were made for you were made out of fear and judgments of others instead of goodness. And that inspired this whole goodness movement. And so at this point, you say, I'm going to walk away. And one of the things I want to ask you about is how walking away can be so critical to our long-term success. How walking away or making a change or shifting our mentality or thinking can be so critical to success.
Absolutely. And walking away, I'm going to preface that by saying walking away doesn't really mean walking out of your current job. It can be walking away for whatever anchor in your life you have to cut. And that could be the people you surround yourself with. It could be, fortunately or unfortunately, it could be your significant other. It could be the job you're in, the situation, a mindset. And so it really has to just start with a desire or feeling. If we're constantly in a state of judgment, anger, resentment, jealousy, not good enough, the world stinks, North Korea is going to bomb us, that scarcity, fear-based mindset, if you're feeling that and you're not happy, it's got to come from your gut and a desire. So it starts there. And the desire to change or, quote, walk away. And it could be a profession. I mean, it could be a company that you've built for a million years and now you want to go be a board of director or teach at University of Georgia. It doesn't matter. But really, again, it has to come from what do you truly desire in life? What does it light you up? And don't let fear be the driver, because so many of us, and I was one of, and again, I lived it for 36 years, thought that, being able, if Tommy showed up and I wasn't a, quote, financial success and didn't have the stuff, and that's what our news and media and the industrial civilization tells us that we have to have, but that's only a result. Happiness comes from your heart and doing the things that you truly love, the things that you're truly good at, and building the skills around what you're good at. So what I would suggest to people is know what your anchor is. Is it the people you surround yourself with? Is it the company? I mean, look around the company. How are they treating yourself? What does it feel like when you're in that company? And if you're the leader of that company, are people around the water cooler? Are they complaining? Are they on Facebook? Are they quitting? Are they showing up late? Are they motivated to really make you and this company and their lives a success? And that all comes back to that anchor. What is holding us down emotionally, mentally, physically, in life or in business? And I'm a firm believer, by the way, there is no difference in business and life. Wherever you go, there you are. It's one big stew. And so you've got to be working on you. That's the biggest mistake I see from individuals and leaders, is we stop working on ourselves. We stop progressing and seeking how to be better than we were yesterday. And that's my life. I spend 2 hours a day. I mean, I am dogmatic about it, just to put on my pants in the morning and know that I have to serve myself first before I serve others. So to cut that anchor and know when it's time to move on, and moving on can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. It could be a career. It could be, I know entrepreneurship is sexy, but that's not for everybody. But what I would encourage you is trust your gut. Your gut is always right. Are you truly fulfilled in life? Are you always seeking? Do you enjoy the present moment? And most of my peers for years and years and years, and a lot of the clients that I work with, they don't realize it's never going to be enough. And then we turn around at 60 and 70 years old and we've achieved all these things, but financially, but have we achieved meaning? Did we enjoy it when we got there? Or was it just 60 or 70 years of go, 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 and never being present and working on ourselves and really coming from a place of compassion, empathy? I know these are foo-foo words and I live in the empathy business, but it's so critical to our success, our lives, and our happiness. And for me, at age 36, it was life or death.
Well, what about those of us who feel stuck? What about those of us, and I'm not talking just the golden handcuffs, but I think once you get down this path of, I'm already on this direction, I'm already headed in this way, you start to get this in your mind. It becomes, the repetition builds it into a maybe an obstacle or a mountain that you don't know that you can climb. What's our first step when we feel stuck, that we know we need to make a change, but because of our circumstances, we feel like we can't?
So this is going to sound a little bit cliche, but it's the exact opposite of being stuck, right? Is you have to take some action. You have to, and I'll never forget this saying. And I'm a huge outdoor guy. I love doing water sports and hiking and all this. I'll never forget a rafting guide said this to me, and I used to do some pretty crazy rafting. He said, Tommy, you have to participate in your own rescue. And I'll never forget that. I mean, we can try to get you back in the boat, but until you turn over, put your feet up, yell where you're at, and look for the rope, we might not be able to save you. So there's no magic pill. There's nobody coming to save you. If you're stuck, and stuck again means a lot of different people, you have to start taking action. And action can be picking up a book. It could be hiring a mentor, hiring a life coach, going to a psychologist, talking to someone you really trust who comes from a place of love. It could be about surrounding yourself with better people, taking a true inventory. Here's a great one. Take an inventory of yourself. And I mean, and this is something I help clients with too. I mean, really take a deep dive in where you are in life, where you want to be, and how you got there, and what direction you want to go. And where you want to go, start taking action to get there. And so being stuck requires action. And the truth is, and this is kind of tough love moment, I can't do it for you. And that's, again, when I went back to these emails and calls I get on a regular basis is, hey, I want to live a more fulfilled life, or I want my business to go from 100 million to 500 million. But by the way, I don't want to change, and don't get me in that guru stuff. It goes back to taking action and really being open-minded with that action, and knowing even the action could be wrong, but moving and not getting stuck is better than just being stuck, because you have to move. You have to work on yourself. You have to surround yourself by unbelievably like-minded, abundant-minded people. And if you do that, I can't tell you, it sounds kind of crazy, but what will manifest in your life is unbelievable from where you are now. And here's the toughest part is I think a lot of people want me to turn the light switch on the fear for them. And fear can either be a motivator or it can paralyze you. And eventually I can get you through the fear and get you a bunch of skill sets. And, hey, what if people discover that I'm not the best leader, or I don't know this? It's okay. Well, you do know a lot of things, and let's concentrate on those. But the whole point of that is move and action. You have to take the steps.
So the solution to being stuck is big momentum, and you have to start. You got to take that first step. Absolutely wonderful. I love that answer because I couldn't agree with you more. I think that just taking that very first step, and sometimes that first step is the hardest step, but once you take it, you'll realize that that second step is a little bit easier and a little bit easier. I was climbing Mount Shasta, and I remember as we got
so awesome.
And it was an incredible experience, Tommy. I got to tell you, it sounds like you've climbed before.
Yeah, I have. I have not climbed Shasta, but it is on the list.
And you got to do it. Being an outdoors guy, you got to get out there and do it. But there's this place up there called the Heart Rock. And we got up to this point, and there was a group behind me, and they said, we're going to sit down and rest. And I looked at the group and I said, I am going to keep going. I'll go a little bit slower so that I don't get too far out ahead of you guys. But I got to keep this momentum going, because if I sit down on this Heart Rock, I'm going to freeze to death. I'm not going to stand back up and do it. And I think that's what you're saying. You got to get that momentum going. You got to have the desire to keep going.
That's so huge. That's huge what you just said. And a side note, as something happened to me 2 years ago. I was climbing, actually. It was in the Appalachian Trail. I was dehydrated. I was halfway up. I was exhausted. The trail was extremely difficult. I wasn't prepared. And by the way, I'm afraid of heights. And I do climbing. I climb. And so what was interesting, and I was by myself, another big error. And I was paralyzed by fear, dehydrated, and completely exhausted. And I was literally having a conversation with myself and God. And is this where you die, and this is how you're going to die? Or are you going to stand up? You can go back down, which would have been incredibly difficult. And up was even just as difficult. But I was like, nope, I have one choice. I'm out here alone. We're going to keep going, one foot after the other. We're going to take our time, and we're not going to be paralyzed by fear, because all of that came in. So I love what you just said. Those are two great analogies for whatever you're stuck in life is move.
Absolutely. Now, I quickly want to talk to you. We're getting close to the end of the podcast here, but I got to talk about these 4 goodnesses, because you talk about choosing goodness. You have 4 of them on your website and through your whole philosophy that you teach. And I want to talk about each of them briefly, just so the audience can get an idea of what these 4 goodnesses are and why each one is important.
So the first goodness, and this is the one that I still struggle with today the most, is, and I think a lot of humans will relate to this, is choose goodness for yourself. You cannot be the best at whatever you are, family person, leader, community organizer, whatever your different things are that you live in life, is you have to serve yourself first. And that means take care of the mind, the emotions, the body, the temple, and grow. I mean, constant growth and development. And don't put the gym or your self-development, even in your family. That's the first thing we always put aside. And so choose goodness for yourself is so important. The second one, and this is my undying belief, is you have to choose goodness for others. And that's where serving comes in. And I have a plan that I live by. And on that plan, it says, give 51% more than you receive. And so if you're serving someone and people, what people desire to serve and who they desire to serve is up to them. And it could be in their business. It could be in their lives. It could be in their families. But make sure you're giving 51% more. The third one is the community. And that in business, the community is your people you sell to, your vendors, your employees, your stakeholders. And make sure that in all decisions of your life, that in all decisions you make in a business, are you coming from a place of everybody is benefiting from this? And a community for individuals could mean anything from church to synagogues to YMCAs to basketball to, get out there and be involved in your community. And my community tends to be a little bit larger in scope. I have some big dreams for this thing. And finally is for our earth, choose goodness for the earth. And it's so interesting. I despise politics. I really do. And I'm not going there. But it's so interesting to me that, I deal with a lot of people on both sides of the political spectrum. And when I meet with them one-on-one, they really want and desire the most things. And is the actions we're taking as a country, as a business, as humans, is that truly benefiting all living things on earth, whether it's animals, plants, old people, young people, the earth, the water, the air? And I'm telling you, 99.9 out of 100 come from a place of, I really care about all these things. But as our actions as individuals and in businesses, are they in line with, hey, let's really support, really our home. Our home is earth, right? And all the things in it and how we treat each other and how we treat, animals, plants and our system is how we live our lives really beneficial to that. And so that's my category for the choose goodness.
And we're all connected. And you look at that and you say, self, others, community, planet. When we're all working together, we're all pulling together. Now, Tommy, I've got you on the Modern Leadership Podcast, and the listeners to this podcast are leaders. And the challenge that we're throwing out to these leaders is we need you to choose goodness. We need you to lead others by choosing self, others, community, and planet. Go out there, do what you need to do for yourself, and then spread the message. Go out there and help other people. The more you serve, do more than just being despised. Go on to being beloved.
If you do that, you'll build zealots. They'll preach your story for you. It's the most amazing things. If you just come from a place of goodness and what you believe in, the world will follow and success will come. I promise that.
You can have everything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. Tommy, before I let you go today, I got to run you through what we call a section called Learning from Leaders. This is just 5 to 6 rapid fire questions. Get to know you a little bit better and put a little personality and face behind the name and the teachings that we had today. Does that sound like a plan?
Absolutely. That sounds fun.
Well, let's find out. What is the current book on your Kindle or bedside table?
Unshakable, Tony Robbins.
How about the best movie ever made?
Gladiator. That movie changed my life. Strength and Honor. I could watch that movie 300 times. Gladiator. It's speaking of goodness. There's no more goodness than that. It's just.
I noticed on your Instagram feed that you were just recently in Rome. Is that correct?
I was just in Rome and I was in the Colosseum. I was actually there again, serving myself, working on myself and my business and trying to be, the best leader, consultant, mentor that I could be. And so I was there working, but I also took some time to serve myself. And my wife and I went and toted around Rome. It's just so amazing.
Very good for you. We were there in March as well at the Colosseum. Absolutely incredible. So how about your leadership superpower?
I think my leadership superpower is building trust because most of the time I've been there and I've suffered from a lot of the same triumphs and strategies. But the second, I think it's trust. Holding some of the most powerful men and women I know accountable. And the third thing is really getting the best out of them and being their best self. I think I have 3 superpowers and they're all related. Is I can meet people where they're at and help them to be better than they were yesterday.
Trust, accountability, and helping people get to the next level. How about a motivational quote or mantra?
I'm going to use the one earlier that we talked about because it just means so much in my life is participate in your own rescue. Literally, if you're struggling with any component in your life, and all of us are in one phase or another, I mean, it's the journey, right? It's the human experience. Literally take action work on yourself, be better than you were yesterday, and participate in your own rescue, and life will just unfold in front of you. I love that. And that was told to me by a river guide. So, and I promise you at that time, he was 1,000 times happier than I was. I was a partner in a big firm.
And I take notes as we go through this episode. I take notes on the side here, and I had starred and circled participate in your own rescue. And Tommy, I had planned on using that as the title of this episode. So it resonated with me as well. I'm so glad you brought it up again. Final question for you. How about the best business book ever written?
Gotta be The Big Leap. I run a mastermind, and everyone in the mastermind's reading it. I've got 4 other business leaders in the community reading it, and the emails, calls. I've read it 3 times. It changes people's lives, and it changed my life, and it motivated me to do what I'm doing now. And so The Big Leap, I give it away, and I've got, no kidding, as we speak, 7 people in the southern United States reading it. So yeah.
I've got it started. It'll be on the website. We will recommend it to all the listeners. Tommy, it's been so wonderful to have you on the podcast. Before we let you go today, any last bit of advice? And then tell us, how can we choose goodness and find out more about you?
Last piece of advice is, I think the key to being a successful human being is open-minded. I think we're the culmination of who we hang out with, where we were born, what we listen to, what we read, who we're around. We're just a product of our environment. And I think from a human standpoint, a business standpoint, a political standpoint, and then, a world standpoint, that if we could just be a little more open-minded and come from an empathy and compassion place, and maybe there's other folks and cultures and religions that could really benefit us in some way, and we could benefit them. And if we do it in open, honest, compassionate, empathetic dialogue, I think that would really change. So if there was one thing that I would want to leave the world, and I've learned this because someone who was closed-minded for 36 years, and now I'm a seeker. Open-mindedness is the key. So that's what I would encourage folks, that my last little bit of wisdom, I'm a seeker of open-mindedness and the highest truths in life. So, and there was another question. So forgive me, Jake. What was the last question? I'm sorry.
Well, that was so good. We almost all forgot, but we really want to know how we can choose goodness and find out more about you and connect with you.
Absolutely. You can go to choosegoodnessnow.com. Or you can email directly. I will email you back. It's tommy@choosegoodnessnow.com. Again, it's www.choosegoodnessnow.com or tommy@choosegoodnessnow.com. We have multiple books coming out. One of them is coming out very soon. My book, From Pawn to King, is coming out within this year. You can sign up for that. So there's a lot of different ways to reach us, and we hope to hear from you. And even if we don't hear you, please take action and be better than you were yesterday.
Well, we can't thank you enough for coming on and leaving that with us. We will link all of that up on the show notes so that they have one spot where they can go and get all the goodness and choose goodness with Tommy Breedlove. Tommy, thank you for coming on the show. If there's anything we can ever do for you, please reach out, and have a great day.
Jake, be well.
Well, what did you think of that? I really appreciate Tommy coming on. After we hung up the phone, we got chatting about some of the hikes that we have done. And I told him, hey, if he's ever out on the West Coast, I can hook him up with some great hikes. He said, if you're ever on the East Coast, I'll hook you up. What a great beginning of a good friendship and relationship through finding a commonality. And as we talked through that interview, I was struck by a number of the things that we talked about. Action, taking action, momentum, the importance of moving forward. If you're feeling stuck, find ways to serve, to get out of your comfort zone, to relinquish a little bit of control, and to go out there and serve. It reminds me, a couple of days ago, I was in church and I was listening to one of the speakers talk, and they talked about these 5 loves. And basically the idea is this, every day, make sure you do these 5 things. So first thing, you got to get up and make your bed. That lets your mom know that you love her. And then you got to brush your teeth, and that lets all those people around you know that you love them. Then you got to fill your mind with inspiration and goodness, and that lets yourself know that you're important and moving in the right direction. You got to have breakfast so that you're healthy and strong and able to meet the obligations of the day. And finally, say your prayers, or sometimes we talk about meditating, and that lets God know that He's important in your life. So as we talked about what we need to do with Tommy, I was reminded that there are things that we can do in our life on a daily basis to reach out and choose goodness. You know, Tommy talks about the 4 areas that he uses. That is choosing goodness for yourself, choosing goodness for others, choosing goodness for your community, and choosing goodness for the planet. And that's really getting outside of your own self. That's really focusing on others. Sure, you got to fill your own cup first, right? But then after you get to that point, reach out, help other people. Appreciate Tommy coming on the podcast. I think he delivered a lot of value. Of course, everything can be found on the show notes for this page, which is found at jakeacarlson.com/ML31 for Modern Leadership 31. And of course, while you're on the website, check out our upcoming webinar schedule. Sign up for a webinar. They're free, they're fun, they're all about influence. The CIA of influence: conviction, irresistibility, and accountability. If you're looking for ways to take your leadership to the next level, join us every Thursday for a free webinar on influence. Learn how to build the conviction, become irresistible, and hold yourself accountable to making sure you accomplish all the goals that you have in your life. And with that being said, I want to wish you the very best of days, an even better life. Stay awesome. Thanks for listening to the Modern Leadership Podcast. You can find me on Facebook at Speaker Jake, on Twitter at Jake A. Carlson, and of course the website, jakeacarlson.com. See you there.